You ever just look outside and feel like British weather is completely random? I mean, one minute it's beautiful sunshine, the next it's absolutely hammering it down. Well, what if I told you that there's actually a hidden structure to all of that chaos? A kind of architecture that, once you see it, makes everything click into place. So let's get into it and finally make sense of the UK's famously fickle skies.
And that right there, that's the key. The sky isn't random at all. It's this enormous, constantly moving system that's always trying to find balance. So instead of thinking with it as just a mess of chaos, think of it more like a massive atmospheric sorting office. And we're about to figure out how it all works.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with why Britain's location is so special. Then we'll look at the basic ingredients of weather, the air itself. After that, we'll see what happens when those ingredients clash, discover the giant engines driving everything, and finally, put it all together so you can actually read the weather story as it happens. So first things first, location, location, location. You see, the UK is sitting in this incredible spot on the globe. You could call it a sweet spot or maybe a chaotic one, because it's right where chilly air spilling down from the poles smashes into warm, moist air pushing up from the tropics. This constant collision is the #1 reason our weather changes on a dime. Okay, so to really get a handle on these weather battles, we need to meet the armies, right? And that means we've got to talk about the air itself. Because the weather you and I experience every single day, well, it all comes down to the personality of the air that's hanging out above us. And this brings us to a really critical concept, the air mass. Just imagine a giant bubble of air that sat still over one part of the world for so long that it starts to take on its character. You know, air that forms over the Sahara, it's going to be hot and dry. Air from the chilly North Atlantic, cool and damp for sure. These are the basic building blocks for every weather forecast. And here are the 5 main players in our weather story. You've got the cool, showery polar maritime coming in from the Atlantic. Then there's its warmer cousin, the tropical maritime, which brings that mild, drizzly, cloudy weather. From Europe, we get the polar continental. Think cold, crisp winter days. Then there's the rare but powerful tropical continental from Africa, the one responsible for our heat waves. And finally, straight from the top of the world, Arctic maritime brings those truly biting winds and snow. So you've got these 5 different air masses roaming around. What do you think happens when they finally run into each other? Well, they definitely don't just mix together nicely. Nope. They form a distinct boundary, a clear battle line in the sky. And that battle line has a name, a front. And listen, a front isn't just some imaginary line on a map. It's a real physical zone where that lighter warm air and that denser cold air are literally fighting for control. And it's right here, along this line of conflict, that pretty much all of our interesting weather gets made. The clouds, the rain, all of it. Now, there are 2 main kinds of fronts to know. First, the cold front. That's the one with the blue triangles. Think of it like a bulldozer. The cold air aggressively wedges itself underneath the warm air, forcing it to shoot upwards, creating these huge, dramatic, towering clouds. Then you have the warm front with the red semicircles. This is more like a slow, gradual invasion. The lighter warm air gently glides up and over the cooler air, creating these wide, layered sheets of cloud. And this difference explains so much of what we actually feel on the ground. You know that feeling when a sudden, heavy downpour barrels through, and then afterward the air just feels sharp and clean? That's a cold front. And that endless, dreary, steady rain that goes on for hours, that's your classic warm front. And once it finally passes, things feel a lot milder. You've definitely experienced both of these 1,000 times. But wait, there's a twist. Sometimes that speedy cold front actually catches up to the slower warm front. When that happens, it lifts that entire pocket of warm air right off the ground. That's called an occluded front, and it's basically the messy, complicated end stage of the battle, giving you a real jumble of cloud and rain as the whole system starts to wind down. Now, these fronts aren't just drifting around randomly. They're organized. They're driven by these enormous weather engines, massive systems of low or high air pressure that basically call the shots for the entire atmosphere over the country. On one side, you've got depressions, or low pressure. Think of these as giant atmospheric vacuums, spinning air anticlockwise, sucking air in and up. That upward motion creates clouds and drives those fronts around like spokes on a wheel. This is the engine of our classic unsettled, changeable weather. On the other side, you have anticyclones, or high pressure. Here, air is sinking, and that acts like a lid, stopping clouds from forming, and bringing calm, stable conditions. That means lovely sunny days in summer and frost or fog in winter. Okay, so we've got our air masses, we've got our fronts, and we've got the engines that drive them. Let's put it all together. Now we can actually read the story of a classic British weather system as it moves overhead. This is the moment where all that chaos starts to look like a predictable, logical story. And this sequence right here is the classic tale. First, you notice high, wispy clouds starting to fill the sky. That's the warm front on its way. Then, the steady rain begins. After that passes, you might get a short, mild, and muggy break in what's called the warm sector. But don't get too comfortable because, boom, the cold front hits with a sudden, intense burst of heavy rain and wind. And then, just like that, it's over. The sky's clear, the air feels crisp and cool, and you're left with just a few scattered showers. See? It's a rhythm, not just random noise. And really, that's what it all boils down to. Next time you look at a weather map, you won't just see a bunch of symbols. You'll see the plot. You'll see the story. Those blue triangles and red semicircles are telling you about a dynamic, moving argument between two air masses, fighting over who gets to control your weather for the day. So from now on, when you check the forecast, don't just see it as a simple prediction. See it for what it truly is. The next chapter in this incredible, non-stop story that's being written in the sky above us. And the best part is, now you know how to read it.